If I was right in my speculation, then it would have been the first time suicide bombers had ever been seen in Britain. And that really was a chilling moment.
Breaking news we're getting from the PA Newswire that there's been reports of an explosion outside Liverpool Street Station.
People running towards me saying a bomb has gone off in a bus.
There's a great nervousness, and where in the past you might ignore a discarded bag that you see on a tube station or anywhere else, I think the temptation will be to phone in and report it now. I'm Martin Brunt, I'm Sky's crime correspondent, and I was on a train when I first learned about the London bombings on the 7th of July 2005.
Breaking news this morning, that explosion at Liverpool Street Station. St Pancras has been evacuated.
Speculation only at the moment of what caused that, but police stressing that it probably was a power failure or a collision between two trains.
Our train had ground to a halt just outside Croydon Station in South London, and the guard ambled through the carriages. He said that there was some kind of power surge that had knocked out the whole of the tube system, and I thought, what's the ultimate power surge? An explosion. I made a phone call to Scotland Yard. I spoke to somebody I knew there who told me that there were several incidents on the tube network, and I said, how serious was it? He said, it's very serious. I said, is anybody dead? And he said, yes, we think so, but please don't report that yet. And I said, is it terror? And he said, maybe. So I rang the news desk and told them what I'd been told at Scotland Yard. They put me straight through to the studio.
There certainly is a great fear at Scotland Yard that this is a series of coordinated terror attacks. It's a fear. There's nothing to confirm that at the moment.
So the train was diverted here to Cannon Street Station. Now, when I got off the train, when we arrived, I noticed that some of my fellow passengers stayed on board. By then, there was a real sense that London was a city under siege. And I think some of those people felt if they stayed on the train, it would at least take them away from London, wherever it headed next. I came out of the station and I had to work out how I was going to get to Scotland Yard. By that stage, all the tubes were out of action, all the buses were out of action, because by that time there'd been the explosion on the red bus at Tavistock Square. After my long walk from Cannon Street, I got here, it must have been about 11:30. It was these two buildings here. That was Scotland Yard. Latest figures I have on the number of dead is 45. That's not official, but it's come from a very good source. Clearly, a number of people had died, but nobody was giving us an official death toll at that stage. But my sources were telling me that it was probably around 45 people who had died. And that was, that was a big number. Within a week or maybe fewer days, we were told that the final death toll was 52. According to police sources, that certainly the bomb on the bus may have been the work of such a suicide bomber. An officer I knew who'd visited the site of the bus bomb in Tavistock Square told me that one of the bodies recovered from the bus, the injuries were consistent with those found on the bodies of suicide bombers in Israel and Iraq. In this report, I was raising the spectre, suggesting that all four of the bombers were suicide bombers, but underlining the fact that there was no confirmation at that stage. If I was right in my speculation, then it would have been the first time suicide bombers had ever been seen in Britain. And that really was a chilling moment. One of the problems they have in dealing with this kind of terrorism is that it's very difficult to infiltrate the groups involved. Occasionally, we would gather from about 8 o'clock in the evening at this pub around the corner from Scotland Yard, where crime reporters would sit with Andy Hayman, who was the Assistant Commissioner for Special Operations in charge of the investigation, and a press officer. They would give us more detail about the investigation. One of the important things they told us was that although they believed early on that the bombers were dead, were suicide bombers, there was a big hunt for anybody who could have helped the bombers, anybody who could have given them advice, helped them build the bombs. So I guess by the end of the day, in my mind, we had embarked on something completely new, completely different and quite horrific, the idea of suicide bombers in Britain.